Let's move on, though, John, to the 2023 potential breakout list, players list. We had Charlie Jones and Travion Williams so far, right? We're going to stick on the offensive side of the ball, but it's not going to be a skill position player. Some buzz occurred, I believe it was from last night, where a lot of the Bengals players attended the Reds game and were, taking BP and doing some field. By the way, Lael Collins, I think, was out there kind of fielding some balls at first base, it looked like, maybe making a couple throws. That was kind of cool to see. But, we saw a lot of guys out there, and one guy that kind of started to create a little buzz was, and based on a photo, and we'll get there in a second, was this young man who happens to play offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals, and that person is second-year man Cordell Volson, left guard. And we'll get to the picture in just a second here, but this is a guy that had some nice moments as a rookie. I'm going to pull up some film here in just a second. I slowed it down. You can see here, we can start this over. I'll rewind it a little bit here. What I did, John, is I pulled late season film, and you can see here he is, I think, up against Patrick Queen here. Karras is going to come into the combo block, and Mixon gets a nice gain there, and he's just working, right? I mean, he continues to work on another player there. Here he is in a pass pro, just kind of sticks with it. I mean, nothing super fancy, but sticks with it. Nice play to Tyler Boyd. Here's some of the best footage from the Buffalo Bills game. This was the was this the touchdown to Hunt? Yeah, this was the touchdown to Hayden Hurst. We can go back on that one here. Let's go back right here. So here he is, obviously next to Jackson Carman right down here. And you look at him, and a little twist there, picks it up and kind of pushes the guy into the pile and makes him irrelevant. Wide open Hurst touchdown. And obviously this game was, the offensive line was playing outstanding. Look at him just stand up. I think that's Ed Oliver maybe right there, or someone else. But you matched up against Ed Oliver. Nice on a number of occasions. This one's regular speed here. You can just kind of see gets a guy to the ground, and obviously that results in a touchdown. Here, we'll slow this one down for you here. Kind of gets in there and combo blocks there and then sticks with the block for a nice gain to Tyler Boyd. I think this one was pretty early in the game. This one, I think, was one of my favorites. If you watch this one, he'll get on a guy. Oh, no, it's not this one. It's another pass.
He's still moving. That's still like moving, 6 yards down. He's engaged.
You know what? I think it was the Higgins one. Let me go back to this Higgins play. Did we do the Higgins one yet? Maybe we didn't. But there's one where I thought it showed really good awareness, where he's blocking a guy, and then as he's kind of blocking a guy, he turns his head to the left to make sure that Carman wasn't beat on his side, and also see if he can get, because he got help from Karras. Yeah, I think I passed it. Bummer. I'll see.
So he was looking for work, though. He was looking for work. He was looking for work. Active.
These are some ones. These are some reps I didn't like against the Chiefs here. You see, he just gets caught and just pushed back there, and it results in a sack early on for the Bengals. Let me see if I can find that one. It was a pass to T. Higgins. I'll see if I can pull that back up for you, because I really liked that play. This was the Hurst play. Was this the one to Higgins? Yeah, I think this is the one. So you can see here, he's kind of turning his head and starting to get over there. He had a guy locked up. Karras helped him out on that one. And as he got help from Karras, he ended up he ended up, trying to help out Carmen as well, which I liked. Now, this is the picture that's causing the stir, John. He looks. This is part of the reason why I think, in breakout, maybe a relative term. He looks like he has bulked up in a good way. At least, we could take stock or lack thereof in these pictures or whatever. I mean, we got all excited about the Lael Collins workout video that was real brief a couple of weeks ago, and so he looks like he has really beefed himself up in a good way, muscle mass type of thing. Here's the thing. I mean, a Pro Bowl player, maybe not, but you saw flashes last year. You saw some good games, some somewhat regular good snaps from him. There were some issues. There was a couple of snaps late in the year. You saw him kind of get pushed way back, causing that sack in the Chiefs game. But there's the whole floor ceiling debate and all of that. But I think that he's poised to take a nice step this year. And if he does, that's a key piece to this team, aside from health and aside from, the safeties playing well, the new safeties playing well and all of that. If he can take another step in his development and get to be, a truly solid left guard, which I think he can be, or the potential is there, the consistency is needed, but that is going to be a major facet to the Bengals potentially winning a Super Bowl.
I mean, that's country strength right there. Like that's a guy who's, I mean, he was working on what, like in North Dakota, his like family's got like a farm or it's like some type of industrial plant. Like, yeah, he's he's country strong in that regard. But I think last year ended or was about as good as you could have expected. You got to remember, Volson, he played multiple spots at North Dakota State in like 60-something games, but he was primarily a tackle. So he was making a transition in his own right. And I know there's a narrative that it's very simple for a tackle to move inside to guard, or it's supposedly supposed to benefit said offensive lineman. But when you're moved inside closer to the center, it gets a lot faster, obviously. And that was an issue that Jackson Carman had when he was trying to transition to guard. They had him doing a bunch of jump sets, and he was missing with his hands. And with Volson, there was kind of the same plan, but he, I think, adapted much better, and he adapted to the increased speed. Not only are you going from FCS level college players to the NFL, but again, you're playing in space more often at tackle, and your angles are just better, and it's easier in that regard to going inside against NFL defensive tackles who are much stronger, who are much quicker. And I think it ended up being as good as you could have expected. It was very up and down. He had some very good weeks. He had some very bad weeks. Very bad being like the very beginning of the season when Cam Hayward made him look like a fool on the very first play, right? But if you look at him compared to other rookie guards who started last year, he was considerably better than Kenyon Green was, who was a first-round pick by the Houston Texans. He was about on par with Zion Johnson, who was another first-round pick with the Los Angeles Chargers. Cole Strange ended up being the most productive pass blocking rookie interior offensive lineman, believe it or not, and he was like considered like a giant reach in the first round. But Volson was on par with pretty much every other rookie who was starting last year, and a lot of people didn't really expect him to go as early as he did, but he just kind of took his role in stride, and he made the absolute most of it. And for the most part, like, he looked like he was on the same page in terms of a communication standpoint, and obviously being aware in pass protection, getting your assignment down, but also recognizing that Joe Burrow is a quarterback that likes to extend plays. He'll hold the ball too long sometimes, and then that may lead to some pressures. But it never looked like the game was too fast or too big for him. And obviously the technical issues, they can get eased out as his career progresses and as he gets more comfortable in the scheme and whatnot. But for a rookie who is thrusted into a faster game at a faster position, it ended up looking as good as possible. So that gives you a pretty good base floor for him to continue progressing. It seems like he's on that path right now.
Yeah, I mean, small school to starting, AFC North NFL guard it's a big jump. There's two questions: age/ceiling, right? Because he was drafted older. He was an older guy when he was drafted. And the other, John, for me, is the height. Because sometimes guards are, maybe 6'3", 6'4". You want them a little squattier to have that lower center of gravity. Sometimes, you have the squattier, interior defensive lineman that you're going up against to see, sometimes the height, while it's imposing and you can have the reach that usually goes along with that and everything, former tackle, as you mentioned, while you have all of that, sometimes it can work against you, right? And I think that's what happened on that one clip, if you saw there against the Chiefs, where he just got under him and it just kept pushing it because it was a leverage game, and that guy was quite a bit shorter, I think, than Volson was, and just kind of got under him, so to speak, and moved him back. So those are the things I think, and then, you talk about consistency, but I don't know if you have questions about, if the height continues to be an issue for you at guard. And then, of course, how close to the ceiling is he based on what we saw last year?
Well, interestingly enough, it was Orlando Brown who was talking to Jeff Hobson the other day, and Brown said that, like, he believes that Volson has quote unquote Pro Bowl potential with his size and mental makeup. Quote, I think he really uses his height to his advantage. His mindset and his length are two things that are really going to separate him in the long run. This is from Bengals.com and Jeff Hobson and the wonderful work that he does. We got to get him back on the show as well. But I agree with you, though. Like, height typically, when you're that close to the middle of the formation, leverage is king, and how much you can control your pad level is ultimately going to determine your success or your failure. That's why Geno Atkins was so dominant, because he could just be under the pads of any guard that he would go up against without even trying, right? So, but with height does come length. So Volson does have, I think, about average to above average arms. I think he's just under 34 inches, which is why I think some teams did peg him more as a guard, because they prefer to have their tackles with at least 34-inch arms. So there is more length to him for being a guard. And again, it's going to come down to primarily timing and placement with his hands. Like, if he can get those more under control in a consistent manner, he can mitigate some of those leverage issues, and he can, I guess, recover faster and kind of reset and re-anchor, and that will lead to a more even battle when it comes to leverage. But it really comes down to making sure that your hands strike in the right place, because that we saw against the Chiefs, like, he just let his chest be exposed completely. Like, he missed with his hands were late, and at that point, it doesn't matter how long your arms are. If a guy just has you right in your temple of your chest, like, there's nothing you can do. You're on skates at that point, and you're trying to get your hands back underneath, but at that point, you're already 5 yards back in the pocket, and Joe Burrow's taking a sec to start the drive. So it really does come down to the timing and the placement of his hands, and if he can get that down, then he can use his height to his advantage for sure.
You mentioned him just a minute ago, but the guy he's playing next to as well, Orlando Brown Jr., a guy who has 35-inch arms, Jonah Williams about 33 and a half. And so, say what you want about Brown versus Williams and that sort of thing. I mean, I think most people feel like this will be a left tackle upgrade. I think the Bengals feel that way. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made the move, right? So now you have a supposedly, or on paper at least, a better player flanked by him. Volson is flanked by a better player on the left. And then, of course, I think, as this season wore on too, and you saw in some of those clips there, he and Karras worked very well together on a lot of occasions later in the year, particularly in that Bills game, a lot of good combo blocks and things like that. So, you would think then that maybe plays a little bit into a supposed or marked improvement from Volson in terms of who is flanking him on the left.
Yeah, and just for recap as well, he logged over 2,000 snaps at right tackle at North Dakota State, about 100 snaps at left tackle, 400 snaps at right guard, only 19 snaps at left guard. So left guard was pretty much a brand new position, and I think you have a good point there. Like, a lot of when the Bengals started to kind of transition more to their gap scheme and run blocking, it led to a lot of deuce blocks and combo blocks with Ted Karras at the center. Like, that's a big part of just a gap scheme and when you're running downhill like that. And a lot of it comes down to making sure that the leverage that you attack with, that whatever it's the nose or it's the 3 technique, making sure that you basically clear that gap out and hand it off to the center before you move up to the second level. He seemed very apt in those regards. I think he was way more consistent as a run blocker compared to when he was a pass blocker, but obviously his value in the Bengals offensive line is going to be determined by how clean can you keep Joe Burrow, right? And you're still having dominant 3 techniques in the AFC North and on this slate of schedules, so it's going to be a big test to see how far he's grown in that regard.
Yeah, well, hopefully he's the guy that does take a step forward. Not that he was awful or anything last year. Like you said, he was pretty good at on a number of occasions. He had some down moments as well, but if the consistency where that pendulum doesn't swing so wildly from side to side, if you can get a little more consistency out of him, I think that's going to be a huge thing for the Cincinnati Bengals. And breakout would be a relative term for him because he's already a starter on the offensive line. But to become a solid and reliable guy in year two would be a huge boost for the Bengals.